Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast. I am a woman on a mission, apparently, to get you a minimalist Zettelkasten on your work table beside you. So this is a brief overview, which I probably should have started with to begin with. So what my purpose in this overview is to give you a tiny bit about what is a Zettelkasten. Number two, the reason why I'm choosing a minimalist approach, which blends right into number three, who would benefit from a minimalist approach. Okay, first of all, a Zettelkasten, some call it a note-taking system. In my view, it isn't. It's a knowledge management system, but it's more even than that. It's a knowledge exploration system, and it's a mechanism by which your present self can talk to your future self, and vice versa. It's a mechanism by which books that you read at different times can communicate with one another across the barrier of time. And if it's done right, it's a great spark of ideas. And I think that's what gives rise to the fact that some people call it a writing machine through working with your Zettelkasten. Okay, beyond that, just Google a Zettelkasten if you want to know whether you want to have one or not. Why a minimalist approach? A Zettelkasten can be complex and confusing, and people can get the impression that it's very difficult to work with. It is not very difficult to work with. It's kind of like the human brain, which when you look at it might seem very complex and convoluted. But when people study the brain, researchers really study the brain does the same simple operation over and over again, and that adds up to some enormous power. That's what you're going to find with the Zettelkasten. Once you have one on your work table beside you, you will discover that you're doing the same simple operations over and over, and amazing things come out of that simplicity, just like amazing thoughts can come out of the human mind. The challenge is that because on the surface of it, it can seem very complex, people can fall into one of three traps. They can open Scott's book, flip through it, and say, eek, and throw up their hands from the get-go and say, gosh, I wanted one of those. It just seems too hard for me. Another group of people will launch into it, find exactly the page where Scott says to begin. We'll follow all of Scott's steps as far as he names them. And then when Scott leaves them off to start working with it on their own, they stall out because they haven't really comprehended what it was they were trying to do. A third group of people get it, and they understand the choices, and they could do this, or they could do that, or they could do this one or that one, or numbers or categories, or all of these different options start floating through their head, and they get analysis paralysis and freeze because they can't make up their mind and they don't want to make a mistake, and so it freezes them. Okay, now on to the third part where this blends in. Why a minimalist approach? The minimalist approach is designed to get you the simplest possible Zettelkasten that meets all of the requirements to have a quality Zettelkasten that will really work for you and function with the full beauty and power of a Zettelkasten. We're not doing any extra bells and whistles. We're not getting fancy in any way, shape, or form. There's only one set of principles that we're going to adhere to down to the letter, and that will be the things that are required to make the Zettelkasten really work. It's going to be easy because we're going to take it one very simple step at a time, not two steps in any one video, just one step at a time. But that may lead to a challenge where some people need to know where they're going, or they cannot do the first simple step. There are people, and I understand, I'm not putting you down, I totally get it, but there are people for whom I could say, take out a card and write A in the upper left-hand corner and set it down. And they would not be able to do that because they would need to know, why did I put the letter A? Why did I set it down on my desk? Where is it going to go? What part of the system is it going to serve? How's it going to function in the future? How can I put the letter A on a card unless I know everything about that card and everything I'm ever going to do with it in my entire life? That's a challenge because it's valid. There are other approaches that might be better for you than this one, because what I'm going to try to do with this one is to give you a step by step by step. And then when I'm done, I'm going to say, okay, hold up your box. That's a Zettelkasten. And so therefore, what I'm going to do by this approach is I'm going to have you build it first, and then I'm going to have you examine the one that you just built, because you can hold it in your own hands. That approach isn't going to be working for everyone. If you need to see the lay of the land first, this series isn't the best for you. I have other series out there where I go into a lot more depth and explain things in a lot more detail. You might want to try one of those. Remember, this series is for people who get paralysis because they either feel overwhelmed or they can't make the necessary decisions to go forward. So this is just for someone who says, okay, workshop it for me. Tell me what to do now. Okay, tell me what to do now. If that's not you, that's fine. But this video series is for that level. This is what you're being invited to do with your Zettelkasten. Build it first and then step back and look at it. Oh, so that's a Zettelkasten. I get it. Now, where are you going to start? I will just give you a tiny, tiny foretaste, and that is you're going to be starting with file cards. I recommend 4x6. You can use 3x5 or 5x7 or whatever size you want, but this turns out to be a real handy size. You'll need cards and you'll need a box. You can use lots and lots of different choices of box. I began life with a plastic shoebox. Fits a set of cards very nicely. A plain old cardboard shoebox works well. You can get a fancier version. Again, designed to fit 4x6 cards. They also make them designed to fit 3x5. Or you can get very, very simple and just repurpose some kind of a box that you have around the house, as long as it fits the size of file cards that you want to use. Something this size will get you a surprising distance. And that is the overview. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.